Hello people, hope you're all doing amazing. I'm Jeff, and today we are going to be talking about The Penguin, Episode 2, my reaction to the events that unfolded. And of course, if you haven't watched The Penguin, Episode 1 or 2, well, this is a reaction, so you're going to get spoilers, so you probably shouldn't be watching this, so go ahead, watch that first, and then come back here, unless you just want to be spoiled. In that case, that is totally fine. Get comfortable. But of course, you should probably watch my reaction to episode 1 because we kind of, broke down everything that's happening, and there was so much setup in that episode. We also had the video to go with it. Unfortunately, that's not going to be the case for this, and probably not going forward because we're going to try to turn these around a lot quicker. But what I will say is this. If you like this video, maybe you should drop a like, and if you want to get in on the conversation, I would love that. So please drop a comment below, and if you'd like to get more people on the conversation, well, best way to do that is share this video with your friends and others. And of course, if you want to see more of this, please make sure to subscribe. But yes, like I said today, we won't really have the video to accompany this, so we'll kind of be speeding through the plot, and I'm going to be giving you mostly my reactions, my thoughts for most of this video, so get comfortable and let's get into it. Alright, let's start off with the opening scene. I thought this was really interesting and really good and was shot really nicely, and when I saw that, it was like the first thing in my head was, oh, wow, they're going to do the exact opposite of what I criticized them at the end of the last video for. And, it started that way, and I will say for the most part, this episode didn't look visually as bad. It didn't, like, cinematography-wise, green screen-wise, it wasn't as poor as the previous episode, which is a good sign. Maybe we're heading up in terms of that, which is really nice to see. In general, that dream sequence was pretty good, pretty interesting. And what was kind of weird though is that as Sofia is waking up out of her nightmare there, her therapist just grabs her when she's freaking out. Listen, I'm not a therapist, but I'm pretty sure if anybody was in that situation, the last thing you should be doing is grabbing them because her reaction was not exactly the best. But anyway, speeding along, we get back into Penguin's dealings with the Maronis. And one thing that is interesting is that apparently that they're like Persian, I guess maybe half Persian or something like that, the family of the Maronis generally, which is interesting. I wonder why that was made. I mean, I have no issues with it, for the record. I really, really, truly don't care. It's just interesting. I didn't really expect that. Like when they started speaking Farsi, I was like, oh, okay, cool, Persian representation. Cool, interesting. But anyway, regardless of that, the one thing I did have an issue with all that is the way that Salvatore Maroni and the Maronis generally just sort of accept the Penguins' plot to kind of get in on this whole drops game. Because it's like this, and I'm going to get into this more, but I mean, we kind of know that in general, in the mob world, you can't just go around fucking killing each other. So for them to take the fall of the, presumptive new crime boss and, a member of the family, right, says a lot. That's a big statement to make. And so for Salvatore to so easily cave to Penguin's deal, it's like, is it really that enticing for you? Do you really feel that in that moment, if you're Salvatore, do you feel that the Falcones are completely falling apart at the seams and that this is like they're ripe for the picking, and that this is exactly where you make your move, right? That you're that power hungry, you're that hurt even maybe, as far as your ego, to go after this. It just feels a little weird. It just didn't feel like he should have done that and make that deal with the Penguin to not out him. Although I don't know if outing him would necessarily work, per se. I mean, like, he could do that and maybe they would kill him because obviously Sofia is going crazy. But yeah, I don't know. Just weird thing because obviously it's a pretty big point that sort of drives the whole episode. And I guess what's interesting though is people in the Falcone family clearly do not respect Sofia. They think that she is insane, that she's crazy, that she's unstable, whatever. Maybe they're just misogynist too. It's probably all of the above, if we're just being honest. And I guess it is making for some for some interesting potential storylines. But it's not something that I expected. I didn't think that they would do that, but I guess it also does make sense. I probably should have expected it, to be honest with you. But what is interesting about it is the way that Sofia, I guess in a sort of paranoid sense to their perspective, clearly notices something's going on. She can clearly put the pieces together and figure out, because all she's doing is thinking about this. Whereas these guys are kind of old, they're moving a little slower, or they're not careful, or they're overly careful actually, in a way, and also in the wrong way at the same time, because they didn't even think that there was a potential rat in their midst. And so they go through with this drop deal, and then obviously Penguin gets out of the situation, even though they kind of put him in a really bad one where he almost set himself up to get whacked. I will also say that his mom, I understand that they're trying to make us feel a bit of sympathy for her and definitely sympathy for him. But the Penguin's mom is just the worst fucking person. Like, she's just a really terrible person, to be honest with you. I understand, like, feeling bad for an old lady, and anybody dealing with dementia obviously is a brutal thing. But she's just a terrible parent, like a genuinely terrible parent. The way she is living through her son and building up this expectation for him to be this basically terrible person. This is sort of becoming his relationship, the Penguin's relationship, with Victor now. And you can kind of see that at the very end. It's kind of his own spin on it, right? He's obviously taking Victor under his wing, and he's kind of building him up the same way I guess his mom built him up, and trying to care for him in a way, because you can kind of tell that he does have a soft spot for Victor, and how could you not? He's a little sweetie. He's just a little sweetie guy, Who could not like him? I'm also very 50-50 on Penguins trying to deceive Sofia. And there's a couple of reasons for that, because for one, she caught him pretty early. We saw in the last episode, she literally had him tied naked to a chair with a gun down his throat. So coming to her in this way feels so heavy-handed. It feels so obvious, and I feel like someone who is as wound as tightly as she is, and so careful as she's being, because obviously her father is now dead, and her brother has just been murdered inexplicably out of nowhere, out of the blue. When all the things are starting to crash down around her, she's obviously on high alert and has literally accused him to his face multiple times, yet he is consistently trying so desperately hard to convince her that he loves them, and it's like it even feels like he clearly never showed that. And again, it feels so obvious. Like there are moments in the dialogue where I feel like, yes, he's making a good point. He's doing his stuff. He's using the gift that he has, which is his ability to manipulate people and just use his words and all that stuff, and be cunning and everything. And then there's other times where I'm like, man, she's like 1,000 steps ahead of you. What are you doing? Like, you gotta chill. And throughout this whole episode, it did feel like he was just going a little bit too hard to try and convince her when she clearly wasn't convinced. I just felt that this whole episode was very, I want to say rushed, but the pacing was kind of brutal. Like, it was brutally fast. A lot of scenes feel, like we're getting little bits here and there of, I guess you could say the three main characters, the Penguin, Sofia, and then Victor a little bit here and there. We're learning more about him. But for the most part, a lot of the scenes didn't quite feel like filler, but they didn't feel like they did a lot. They didn't feel like they drove the plot forward as much, or they didn't always feel, there were definitely more than not, but it didn't always feel like the character development was at its best, I guess you could say. And a lot of things felt rushed, they feel unearned, and it feels like almost at every point someone is just kind of jumping the gun, like literally and figuratively. Like, for instance, the Maroni's nearly killing Oz just because he didn't do something the exact right way and got a guy kidnapped. Like, I get it, but it's like, okay, the Penguin is clearly like a higher up in the Maroni family. Him disappearing would not help you. I mean, I do like the ending. I like that, the way they framed Castillo made a lot more sense than framing Vidi. It just really worked because of the way that he was so close with Sofia, that I could believe her and everybody else being like, oh, actually, it will make sense because he has a lot to gain from, siding with the Maronis and being so close with Sofia that he could take out so many people and do so many things. It made a lot more sense that they actually went with him. So that end was actually pretty good. I don't know. Again, I don't know if I necessarily feel that it was earned the way that Sofia and the Penguin team up at the end. But then again, she could also just be lying. She could be lying. For the most part, the actions to this point, especially in this episode, other than Castillo, don't feel that big. And they feel like they should be so much bigger in my mind. It feels like we could have fleshed out a little bit more. We could have slowed it down before we, do what we did and killed Edvard and everything. It just feels like it was just moving so quickly, and it needed to be a bit more of a slow burn. We need to be thinking about these things in the back of our head versus just constant scene after scene after scene of the same two characters from their perspective alone, and never from the perspective of anybody else, and why they would do the things that they do and why they would think the way they would think, because that's how a good plot is structured. But I'm not trying to hate, I'm just trying to be honest, because I guess I have a bit of a high standard, to be honest. There's good in this show, and it's like the talent acting wise that you have for sure is definitely there, but the plot and the way they write it and the way they go about it, it's like, man, it's just pretty much two episodes have been mostly misses. We have 6 episodes left. But those are all my thoughts. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. If you agree with what I said, disagree with what I said, or just have different thoughts in general and just want to talk, please drop a comment below. I would love to talk with you about all your thoughts on this and so many other things, comic book or superhero or supervillain related. And make sure to share it with your friends so they can also get in on the conversation. And if you would, that'd be really cool. If you could just, maybe give me a little bit of a like, that'd be really cool. Give it the quick thumbs up, that'd be dope. And I also want to let you know that while the reaction for the Penguin episode 3 will not come out on Monday because I'm going away, it'll come out most likely on Tuesday. I'll have it all for you then. So make sure to subscribe and make sure to hit that bell because there's going to be something else coming out this week that I really think you're all going to love. So until then, I'll see you guys in the next one.